Well, afternoon boys and girls. I'm now going to cook this little lobster for my tea. So I thought I'd show you how to cook a European lobster. I don't know if the American lobsters are slightly different, but this is purely for cooking European lobsters. Well, it's been in the fridge for a couple of days with a cloth over it to keep it damp, and you see it's still alive. So I'm now going to put it in the freezer for half an hour to send it in a semi-dormant state. When you're talking about cooking a lobster, you need to be able to tell, to get it spot on, whether it's male or female. Well, you see this shell that's rounded and got flat sides. The female ones flare and come out. And if you look underneath the tail, these little legs underneath the tail, see there's a few little bits of fluff on them, but they don't much. On a female, they'll be really fluffy. So this is a male lobster. So that you remember, round shell, not much fluff. Easy peasy. So remember what I just said, that the cooking times are different on a male and female lobster. The reason is, in a male lobster, there's no roe, and female lobsters, there's roe. And the roe take a little bit more cooking than the tail. That's a bit of a happy medium really, but do make a lot of difference. So let's just go over it again. A male lobster, you look at the shell on the tail, it's like that. And a female sort of come up and flared like that. It's different shape altogether. And obviously their legs got the odd little tiny bit of fluff on, and the female ones have got loads of fluff on. Obviously the reason they got all that fluff is to hold the eggs, and that's the eggs what's inside them what take a little bit more cooking. So here, the size limit lobster, so that's the size limit lobster. I always give them 10 min for males. Then a £2 lobster, I always give them 12 min. A £3 lobster, 14.5 minutes. And a £4 lobster, 16.5 minutes. I've only cooked 1 or 2 lobsters over £4. I've cooked a couple of £5 and £6 lobsters, but it's so, you don't get them that often. Not many people want them, so I don't really cook many, and I think this will cover it. But for females, I always add plus 2 minutes for females. If you don't add them 2 minutes, half the time you'll find the roe inside them isn't set. That'll all be green and gooey and raw. And I don't want bits of raw stuff inside my lobster. So I always add 2 minutes for females every time. You got to do it. Obviously this is just a rough guide. So if you go in between them weights, you got to roughly adjust it. For like example, a small lobster, like a £1 10 ounce lobster, obviously are smaller than £2. So if that's a female, I'd give that roughly 12.5 minutes for a female. That's just rough. That's just a rough guide, but that's pretty damn good, because I've boiled hundreds of lobsters and then cut them and dressed them. So, and because I cut them open and dress them myself, I know exactly what they look like inside, so I know if they're done or not. And it's just by trial and error I've got these cooking times. But they ain't too far away. People say like boiling them and leaving them for a couple of minutes, turn it off. Well, I don't like doing that. I like to get it spot on. And I've found over the years, this is the spot on way of cooking lobsters. I get them spot on every single time. So like right for a small lobster, like I say about add 2 minutes, but I didn't add 2 minutes on that one. Because obviously a small one, well, about £1, and then that's just over 1.5, so that put it in the middle, so 11 min, and then you got on 12.5, so only added a minute and a half. That's because they're small lobsters, but from £2 and above, I will add 2 minutes on. The small little lobsters don't need so much. That's why I've only had a minute and a half on there. And now we're going to go away, Nippy in the freezer, get him ready for boiling. So I'm now going to get Nippy out of the freezer. So there, Nippy, put it on, that way, £1, 6.5 ounces, roughly. So going back to what I wrote, that one was £1, 6 ounces. So yeah, that's not to be 10mm is a size limit. They're a smidgen over a pound. So I'm going to cook that one, £1, 6 ounces. That's under 1.5 pounds. So I'm going to cook that a maximum of 11 minutes. That done maximum 11 minutes. That'd probably be fine after about anywhere between 10.5 and 11 minutes. That'll be spot on. So we'll now get the water boiling, ready to put him in. Well, first get your pan boiling. That's now started to boil a little bit, but then I'll put some salt in. I'll put like 2 inches of water in there, 2.5 inches of water, and I'll put roughly like a tablespoon of salt. And then I'll put the lid on. You want this water boiling as hard as you can. You don't want half a boil, you want a full rolling boil as much as you can. Plenty of water, because then you get the heat into it. So once you then put the lobster in, what's cold, that doesn't take too long to come to temperature. If you've got plenty of water with a lot of heat, i.e. energy in the water, when you put it in, that comes up to the boil so much quicker. Because if not, you're just delaying the boiling. You want to boil it as quick as you can. Obviously, when you boil them commercially, you don't use pots on the stove. That's only because I'm using one. We use a big gas burner, what's about 15-18 kilowatt, and that really get the heat in. And if you turn it up full, when you drop the lobsters in, that don't go off the boil hardly at all. It's back up in seconds. But obviously, the average person ain't got one of these boilers at home, and I'm not going to have one in my kitchen to boil one lobster, am I? Another thing is about Humanity. I always stick them in the freezer for 20 minutes, half hour, to basically put them to a bit of a sleep. But people are comparing it. Ooh, turn it down a bit. People are comparing it to a human. Well, you can't do that, because lobsters are very primitive animals. They ain't got a proper brain and nervous system like humans. They're very, very primitive. They're like the dinosaurs of the sea. So you can't compare their nerves and brains to a human. So you put them in the freezer for 20 minutes just to knock them out, then that's good enough. So that's got a good boil now. So what I'm going to do is get the lobster and plunge it straight in the water and turn it up as high as I can. So hardly leave it. See, it's left the boil slightly, but not a lot, has it? So it's hardly left the boil. Now you can see it, it's started to boil again. It's been 30 seconds and it's got up to the boil. So now I'm going to start the timer for 11 minutes. It's just boiling like hell inside. So now you can see it's starting to boil like hell. And once it really gets ferocious, I'll then ease it back down. I've started to get there now. So now I'll ease the gas down to like a quarter flame, just as a gentle boil. You don't want to boil the life out of the thing. Well, excuse the pun, that probably weren't the best words, but yeah, I'll now turn it down to a gentle simmer, what it is now. It's just bubbling away nicely. Another little thing I've got a spare washing up bowl, what I use for boiling shellfish and nothing else, and a pair of tongs. I don't want to be dripping boiling water and risk burning myself halfway across my kitchen, because as soon as that's got the temperature, I whip it out of there and put it in the sink and cool it off with cold water. So as straight easy, straight out of the pan, lift it into the bowl, take the bowl to the sink and spray it with cold water to cool it down to stop the cooking process. Well, it's now about 10 minutes 45 seconds, so I'll take off the lid, turn off the gas, get the lobster, pull it out, let it drip, pull it out, put it in the bowl, put the lid on to stop the smell, and I'll transfer it to the sink. Obviously, Nippy is now coming into the sink. That's boiling hot, so I'll get the cold water and I'll put cold water straight on it straight away. One thing you got to think about is, look, there's a bit of protein, so there's a leak a bit of protein. That's nothing to worry about, but cosmetically that doesn't look as good, do it? So you got to wash all that off. Wash all the old protein off. That doesn't affect the eating, but it doesn't look as good. And if you're paying prime money for lobster, I'll now tip that out. If you're paying prime money for lobster, you want it at its best, don't you? You don't want any bits of protein or anything off-putting stuck to it. So, just run it over with cold water, all the protein's gone. The lobster's nice and clear, cool. Well, that's cool externally, but internally that might still be a little bit of warmth. But like I say, run it on the tap for a minute or two, and that's it. I'll now leave that to cool for half an hour. After half an hour, leave it to cool. Then you can either dress it or put it in the fridge for a later day. I hope that's been some good information to you, and I'm sure everyone watching it, everyone's got a different opinion and they cook them slightly differently, and I should do this and I should do that. But that's like a lot of things. That's quite an open subject and everyone's got a different opinion. Well, this is my way. Thanks for watching and I hope that's some use to you. Thank you. Bye.